Hey there, Saber fans, Shamim here. Today I am unveiling my second fully machined custom lightsaber hilt, the SM2. Like the SM1 from a couple months ago, you may recall, the SM2 started life as a 12-inch rod of solid aluminum. And I machined the exterior of the hilt on my metal lathe, bored out the inside, installed electronics, added a few greeblies, weathered it a little bit to add some dimension to the hilt, and am now presenting it to you guys. Actually, a little bit of interesting history between the SM1 and the SM2. The SM2, this guy here, is actually the very first thing that I ever machined on my metal lathe. I started out experimenting, using different kinds of tips and angles, and just figuring out how the lathe worked and what kinds of designs I could make. The finish on the SM2 originally was very, very rough. Of course, it was my very first time doing it, so I was still learning how the lathe worked and how slowly I needed to move the tools along the length of the hilt to get a good kind of finish. So I took it from a solid block of aluminum to a solid hilt. It wasn't bored out, no electronics, nothing. It was just a very raw, rough finish, but it was basically this shape and this design. And then I sort of put that on hold, because I didn't have the tools at that time to bore out the hilt. I hadn't thought that far in advance. But I decided I didn't want to be idle while I was waiting for those tools to arrive, so in the meantime, I decided to take all the learning that I had making the SM2. It was just called the prototype at that point, I didn't have a name. And then I applied all of that learning to machining the SM1. This is what it eventually ended up being called, the SM1. And I designed this hilt to be shorter. I also wanted it to be a thin neck. I thought, okay, I've made a standard saber. I haven't bored it out yet, but I want to now try to make a thin neck saber. So I did that, and as I was making this design, I really fell in love with what ended up becoming the SM1, particularly because of the thin neck and how short it was, which fit my personal aesthetic to have a one-handed saber or a hand-and-a-half saber. And so I decided that I was going to take this hilt from start to finish. I was going to take this to completion. And after I finished this one, the tools arrived for boring it out, and I decided to bore this guy out first. So while the SM2 is actually the very first thing that I machined, the SM1 is the first one that I actually completed, and that's why I designated it the SM1, so that the distinction of being the very first lightsaber from start to finish could belong to the thin neck that I had fallen in love with. So I made that, and that was wonderful. You can go and watch the review video from a few months ago about that. And now we come to the SM2. So after I finished the SM1, I learned a lot more about finishing sabers, sanding it, polishing it up, making it much smoother. And then I also, of course, learned how to bore. So I took all of that learning and then reapplied it back to this. So it was sort of a back and forth, work on this for a bit, take it to a certain point, and then take that learning, apply it, go a little further. And now that I've done that, I can go and retroactively take that learning and apply it to the SM2. So I went ahead and bored this guy out. It was much harder, or not much harder, but it just took longer to do because it's a much longer hilt. It's about 12 inches long compared to the SM1, which is about 9 inches or so. So it's another quarter longer or so than the SM1 was. But it still incorporates a lot of the same design aesthetics and elements. You can notice here that these two greeblies on the side are identical to the two greeblies on the SM1. And you can tell that the color palette, the finish of this dull brushed aluminum with darker grooves is matched here on the SM2. I basically wanted the two of these lightsabers, and then any future lightsabers that I make on the lathe, to look as if they came from the same collection. If you ever watch Project Runway or other kinds of design shows like that, you'll know that at the end, like the designers at the end have to make present a collection where everything sort of looks as if it fits within the same story, so there's often some shared design elements, either color or pattern or shape or texture or something. There's something shared. And so I wanted the finish and then a couple of the greeblies to be shared between all of the lightsabers in the now, I guess, the SM collection, and this being the second one of the SM collection. Let's go ahead and take a look at the exterior of this hilt, then we'll talk about the insides, and then we'll turn it on. So we start with a basic blade plug that I machined and then put into some blade stock. There's shine through both around the edge as well as right there in the middle. And you can see that there is a bit of a taper that goes down along the edge of the, there you can see it against my finger and my shirt. So that's the blade plug there. The emitter itself is very reminiscent of Mace Windu, Darth Sidious, Darth Maul style. So it's certainly not a replica, but you can definitely see that there are some design elements inspired by those three hilts in particular. And as I mentioned, because this was the very first hilt that I did, there was a lot of experimenting and just trying out lots of different kinds of things. So like you can see on these three rings here, there is a taper going like this. You can see that there's the angle. And then here, in between these two sections, right there along that line, there's a taper that goes down and up. I don't know how well it's going to show up on camera, but there's just a very, very slight curvature at the top there, right below the line there. These rings here, right here, and then right here, it evokes old sci-fi, like Flash Gordon blasters, very thin, and then some rings going around it. So it's very Flash Gordon, very old Star Trek, very Forbidden Planet, those kinds of things. So I wanted a little bit of old sci-fi look to this hilt. As I mentioned, you've got a main button section here where the two greeblies match the SM1. You've got two more greeblies there in the grooves. Of course, you've got your 12mm recessed tactile switches, two of them, same as with the SM1, set 100 degrees opposite of each other. Blade plug retention screw is up here. This is your LED retention screw. Let's see what else we've got. Then this is sort of a unique ridged grenade section down here, a little bit lower. Grenade sections usually go up higher. I decided to be different and throw the grenade section a little bit lower on the hilt. Right there is the thinnest point of the lightsaber, right above the grenade section. You've got a decorative greebly screw here. This is actually the first time I've used this kind of screw. I don't know how well it'll show up on camera, but you can see a little bit of ridging along the edge, the tapered edge of the screw. I found it at Menards in the lamp section, and it came in both brass and nickel plated, and so I threw the silver one on here just because I wanted something a little bit different. I usually use this guy here, which is a bit more of a round profile, but this one has more of a stark, sharper profile, and it's a bit larger. So just something a bit unique and different. Since this is a larger palette, a larger canvas for me to play on, there was room to put a few more greeblies on here than there was on the SM1. Also, because of the added length, I felt it was appropriate to throw a cover tech on here. That proportion-wise, you have a larger cover tech up here, and then a lot more hilt going on up here. The balance was okay in my mind, whereas it was not as appropriate, I felt, to throw a large cover tech on here, where the rest of the hilt was so thin and small. So I'll have to figure out some kind of belt hanging mechanism for that. And then you've got a retention screw down here, holding the pommel in place. The pommel is a separate machined piece, just like the blade plug, just like the SM1. I haven't yet learned how to do threading on the metal lathe. That's a skill that I hope to pick up sometime in the future to be able to thread sections. But until that happens, it's a solid machined piece with a separate machined pommel. You unscrew the retention screw, pull the pommel out, chassis can slide out, and then you can access your recharge port and your SD card. Speaking of electronics inside, this guy is running a Prizm5.1 soundboard, same as the SM1. Unlike the SM1, this is a full RGB LED Tri-Cree XB2 from Nigon Electronic Creations. My personal favorite RGB LED on the market. It's just twice as easy to wire. Like, why wouldn't you take the path of least resistance when wiring an RGB saber? So shout out to my boy at NEC. Then it's, I mentioned your two tactile switches here. This is auxiliary. The auxiliary one is it's on the side of the retention screws for blade and LED. And then your main one is on the clean side. So there's no other screws up here. So this is your main activation. Then this is your auxiliary. 18650 lithium ion battery. It's 3.7 volts. Your full 3D printed chassis. Then it's a 28mm high bass speaker, same one that's used in the SM1, and the same one that I've now started using pretty exclusively on 28mm builds, just because it's ridiculously loud. And I love painfully loud sabers. Let's go ahead and get her fired up. This is Ordinal. Here you can see the double shine through, both around the edge and right there in the center. To color change, press both of the switches at once. Press and hold the aux switch to advance to the next font. But before we do that, if you ever want to enter mute mode, I usually don't say this on Prizm builds, but you press the aux switch first and then immediately afterwards press the on switch. So it's almost like pressing them at the same time, but it's more of a 1-2 while still holding the aux switch. So 1-2, there you go. You're in mute mode. You still get your blade flicker, still get your flash on clash and all the other blade effects. You can change your colors, you know, do lockup, do everything, but it's all muted. There you go. Press and hold the aux to advance to the next font.
Now, are you going to answer my questions, or would you rather just keep annoying me?
My girl, Bastila! With, of course, a yellow blade. Bit of a slower color change, but necessary because of that beautiful Bastila theme song.
Cyber Assassin.
Gotta have one of my favorite sound fonts. Bit more of a faster shimmer and flicker with the Cyber Assassin because the hum is a bit more aggressive. Now this is a font I haven't used in a very, very long time. This is my Doctor Who Ancient Time Lord sound font. We'll go ahead and just listen to the first of the vocalizations, because I love that. Headphone listeners, be warned. When I say painfully loud, I mean it. TARDIS whooshing for the color change. And a bit of a lengthy power off. But I mean, come on. It's Doctor Who.
You have that power too.
Craft like 7. With an amazing ignition. Most of those have been light side fonts, so we'll throw one dark side Necro sound font on here since this isn't a character specific hilt, it's an original design, so it could just as easily be used by a Sith as by a Jedi. Ooh, that one was good. super deep, bassy color change. And back to ordinal. All right, now that we're back here, let's throw a blade in there and we'll look at all of the 13 colors a little bit more clearly. Out slides your custom machined blade plug. This was a fun little thing to do. I enjoyed making the blade plug. It was quite fun. There's your RGB LED right down there. It's a 1-inch blade holder. Pretty deep-seated socket. So this guy is, I would rate this for full contact, full speed dueling. Unlike the SM1, which has the thin neck, and it's my baby, so I would never really duel with it. But this guy I would. Bit of a cyan turquoise color here. Got a medium blue. This looks like a bit of an indigo. Mostly purple with a little blue. Magenta. Got some hot pink. I love this color. It's a great shade of pink. Then looks like an orange to me. Nice golden yellow orange. Lime green. Not to be confused with Lux and Rebel lime green. This is just a mix of red and green to make a lime color. Sort of a silver blade. The yellowish flash. Red. Green. And blue. Yellow. This is a straight purple. Even mix of red and blue. This looks like cyan. I think this is where we started. Yep, and now here's the turquoise again. So we're back to where we started. So there you have it, guys. This is the SM2, my second fully machined custom lightsaber hilt. Many of you know that I will be at TSL 3, the tournament in Las Vegas, first weekend of August. The Combat Con convention is happening there, and TSL 3 is happening as part of the Combat Con event. So I will be there as a vendor. I will have the SM2 there available for sale. The SM1 I am keeping for my own personal collection as the first saber I took to completion from start to finish. But the SM2, and hopefully also the SM3, stay tuned, will be available for sale at TSL 3. So if you're interested in owning a totally unique, one-off, custom-machined hilt made by yours truly, I hope to see you at Las Vegas. And if by some chance it doesn't happen to sell at the event, it will go up for sale following the event when I return in the second week of August. As will all the other sabers that I have at my vendor table that don't go up for sale. So stay tuned for that. I'll be a little busy over the next few weeks building enough sabers to have my vendor table fully supplied, but a lot of other cool vendors are going to be there, including Vader's Vault. It's always a pleasure to see them. And of course, seeing everyone who will be participating in the TSL 3 tournament along with their friends and family. So looking forward to that. I may do a video or two at the convention, at the tournament itself, and put those up on my channel, so stay tuned for all of that. But thank you all so much for watching, for liking, subscribing, for your support over the last few years. It makes it so much easier to be a sabersmith when I have such incredible support from the community. So please know how much it is appreciated, those of you who watch and who support. You guys make it more fun to do. So thank you all so much for watching, and may the Force be with you.